feel beauty rising.
Hi, my name is Schaetzke with Vermont Volunteer Services for Animals Humane Society, and welcome to our show, For the Animals. Today we have a returning guest, Dr. Randy Schaetzke. He owns a business in Schaetzke at the Waterman Place on Route 4, and it's called Wholistic Health Services. Dr. Randy has DC, D-I-B-A-K after his name. And I've got to ask you, Dr. Schaetzke, what do they stand for?
Well, DC is Doctor of Chiropractic, and DIBAK is Diplomat International Board of Applied Kinesiology, which of course everybody understands. And what that is an organization that was started by chiropractors, but it's made up of medical doctors, dentists, and some veterinarians as well. And we primarily use muscle testing as a way of evaluating a person or an animal, and also diagnosing and treating them. And incorporates many different methodologies, including cranial therapy, acupuncture, nutrition, structural correction, functional neurology, and, well, quite a few other things too.
It's very broad. It's very fascinating.
Yes.
Last time, that's why I think why a lot of people loved your show and kept calling in and asking if we'd bring you back in. So today we're going to work on a cat and a dog, and a couple questions first. Tell me about your expertise. What brought you to Vermont and where you are right now with your place here in our state?
Well, I kind of ended up in Vermont almost like an accident. I had a practice on Cape Cod for 17 years, and I wanted to leave there, and somehow I ended up here and started in Waterman Place. And my primary interest was people, and once in a while they'd ask me about their pets, and well, bring them in, we'll see what we can do. And I just started applying the same principles to animals, and I find that there's a commonality, and that's what I do now, is still apply the same principles I use with people to animals.
Tell me, what is your training? I mean, how do you go to school to be a chiropractic or DIBAK?
Well, chiropractic school is it's about 6 years of college in chiropractic school, and but everything I do, for the most part, I've learned since then. Taken hundreds and hundreds of hours in nutrition and in applied kinesiology, and I just keep on taking courses all the time. So it goes on and on and on, and I just keep on adding to that. And I've been doing this long enough now, so I see things that I learned 30 years ago that people have forgot about. Now they're starting to teach it again, and it's coming full circle. So it's kind of interesting that way.
Okay. Well, we know people are just two-legged animals. Can you tell me what conditions that you've addressed and can work effectively on people? And is it any different for men versus women as far as your treatments?
Not really different versus men versus women. I do see more women because, frankly, women are more concerned about their health than most men. And so someone comes in, most people come in with some type of structural problem, since I am a chiropractor. So it could be neck pain or low back pain or a headache or shoulder or any joint pain for that matter. But then my approach is, okay, so this has been chronic, let's say. Say they have a chronic hip pain or knee pain. And so they've gone to the physical therapist and the medical doctor and maybe the massage therapist and even an acupuncturist, and they still have their symptomology of pain. And sometimes it's just misdiagnosed. Other times we look for why is that happening. So I might see that their hip is out of place, and that's causing the pain in the sacroiliac joint. But why is it doing that? And that's what my instructor in applied kinesiology, Dr. George Goodhart, who's now passed away, instilled on me. He said, always ask why. Why is that there? And so you might see something, but why is it there? And that's the hardest question to ask many times. So in this particular example, I'll see that their sacroiliac is out of place, and I can, as a chiropractor, push that in place and it'll feel better. So then they go home and do their normal activities, and it just slides out of place again, and it's still hurting. So then we'll look deeper. What's causing this? And I'll look at the muscles around the area and isolate each muscle and test it specifically. And we now know that certain muscles can relate with certain organs in the body. So for instance, there's a muscle that goes from your front of your hip to the medial part of your knee that we have associated with the adrenal glands. Now, the adrenal glands are affected by stress. And a lot of people are stressed. So you might find that they have other symptoms of fatigue, craving sugar, maybe they get a little lightheaded at times, and they have more tendency to have inflammatory states. So if that muscle is weakened because it shares a lymphatic drainage with the adrenal glands, and the adrenals are stressed or fatigued, you will find that the muscle will be weak and it doesn't support the hip as well. Now, one thing that it's associated with a weak muscle, let's just say most people are looking at muscle spasms. So for every tight muscle you might find, there's an opposing weak muscle. So most massage therapists and practitioners look for that tight muscle, but sometimes it's the weak muscle they don't know how to find. So that's what I look for, is the weak muscle. So then I'll look for maybe some type of nutritional supplementation they need to help support the adrenals or nourish them or rebuild them. Other times we might want to do some other testing to see if there's something further, that is a hormone or different hormones that the adrenals produce.
So you really cover the whole spectrum.
And then we look at the psychological, I mean, if they're stressed, what kind of stress? You know, everybody thinks of psychological stress, but there's physical stress, chemical stress, thermal stress, electromagnetic stress, and of course, psychological stress. So all those factors can be cumulative and add up. And sometimes a person is, well, I'm not stressed now, but when it started I was, and it's just persisted, and they just, you know, because of diet and habits, they just can't get back to normal. So I find that this approach of looking at other factors makes a difference.
We were talking before the show with regard to symptoms and conditions as you get older. Like, speaking as a woman, as a young woman, I remember premenstrual pains, cramps, and you said, yes, you do deal with that. And then as you get older, osteopenia, bones break down, post-menopause conditions like this, these are things that all can be treated as well?
Yeah, let's take menstrual cramps, for instance. And some people have them a lot, and some people mild, and some hardly ever. And what is the difference? You know, it seems like it shouldn't be like some people say this, well, it's natural to have menstrual cramps or severe ones, or, well, you're just unlucky. It's ridiculous. It really shouldn't be. So any kind of hormonal issue we'll look at is there excess hormones? Sometimes there's excess of hormones, so then that loss during menstruation, we want to look, well, what's changing there? Maybe that's, again, the adrenal glands have to come up and support a certain amount of estrogen as well, which gets into later in life with menopause too. But in menstrual cramps, the way I treat that, I use, I look at, it's a muscle. The uterine contractions are muscular, so I look at muscle physiology. And so that, I might just give them calcium magnesium or something that affects the absorption of calcium magnesium better. And one of the things is fatty acids, oils, types of oils. And you can have an imbalance of oils in the diet. Everybody's confused about what kind of fatty acids, oils you should have in your diet.
So do you do a blood panel workup, or what do you do?
Well, I can do that, but that usually rules out pathologies. Most people come to me have had some workup before, and they say, well, you're normal. All your blood tests are fine.
Right.
Well, then why do I feel like crap here? What's going on? Obviously, your blood's healthy, but something else is wrong. So I look at health as, let's take a scale here. You have optimum health over here, and you have disease over here. So somewhere in the middle is what I call NQR, not quite right. And there's a lot of people out there that are not quite right. So as the closer you get to disease, you might see blood tests start showing up and indicating breakdown of tissues and higher enzymes. But before that, there's nothing showing up. So you need methods that I have to kind of, you know, to uncover and discover what's going on a physiological basis, not on a pathological basis.
Okay.
So back to the menstrual cramps, there's many herbs that can help as well. But the first thing I usually look at, anytime there's a hormonal imbalance of any kind, is the liver. And I'll look, and the liver has 500 functions, and the blood tests maybe are 2 or 3.
Really?
Yeah, and that's for enzymes that show breakdown of tissue. So obviously you can have a detoxification pathways in the liver that are impaired which they're not testing for. There are more specialized tests that can be done, and I will do those from time to time, but usually with muscle testing I can figure that out without going through those tests.
Wow.
So then we usually have to end up flushing out the liver a little bit, clean it up, get it to work better. And then we change the diet. Because the diet is usually full of carbohydrates.
Right.
That's usually what I find. and of course that's difficult enough to change for some people. They just like, no, I don't want to give this up.
Don't make me.
Because it's all comfort food.
Yeah.
And that gets back to the stress.
Right.
So sometimes we look at that. Right. One goes to the other.
It's a
and
cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge.
Okay. I think we could do a whole series of shows on different things. Okay. Let's bring it into the four-legged animals. What types of things can animals be treated for, and what type of animals?
Well, I mean, it's limited how many animals I've worked on. I mean, types is usually cats or dogs, a couple of donkeys here and there, and a rabbit.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and for the most part, there's a cooperation between the chiropractic board in the state and the veterinarian board in the state. So I need to coordinate with vets. That's like, I'm going to look at this, and are you okay with that, and that type of thing. So I can do the chiropractic, and most vets don't get into nutrition and such that I'm aware of anyhow. And so there's a bit of overlap. So I can apply my principles to almost any animal, and it just varies as to the application and what the condition is.
So are all the animals that you've ever worked with either elderly or infirm, or can you? No,
I've worked on some that are only 8 months old and they just had some issues. I think I mentioned that in the last show, the one that had a digestive problem, wouldn't eat. And that was a simple matter of just giving it some B vitamins and apple cider vinegar, and it started to eat again. It was a stress response in that case.
Huh. Can you treat animals for mental and emotional problems as well as their physical?
Well, you can, but I don't do a lot of that. I mean, I would use something like the Bach flower remedies. Are you familiar with those?
Yes.
Because you can't go wrong, can't hurt you, and they have them for all kinds of emotions.
And they're pretty easy to find.
Oh yeah, now they are.
Yeah.
I've been using them for 35 years. I used to get them just from England. And but then you're still going to look at how the animal feels. I mean, if he's in pain or suffering, or kind of toxic, or there's something going on, it's like just like you and I. We're kind of under the weather some day. It's like, well, do you feel like, oh, whoopee, glad to see you? No. You're just going to like leave me alone.
Right.
I'm just going to sit down and make like a potted plant or something, So I just look for clues when I'm looking at animals. Someone may bring them in with a certain set of symptoms, but I'm just looking around for other things on a physiological basis.
Okay. Could you explain, with polarity work with the animals, how do they end up with any problems? I mean, how would you address problems with that using your polarity work? Well,
what I do is not really like a polarity type of work. That polarity to many people means a balancing of energy, of electromagnetic energy around you. I can balance that, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find out more what's going to help create more energy, which will help balance out in general. So people who do, for instance, Reiki, would be more of that type of thing. So I use energy, though, in helping diagnose or figure out what's going on, because I can't say to you, okay, can you tell me about your left hip, please? Apparently not want to.
Well, he was. He just didn't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
How happy.
So so I use a form of muscle testing, and maybe I should show you a little how that energy flows through people.
Then we should introduce. This is Happy, and this is Wes through Potter's Angels Rescue Group. Heather Bent and her fantastic array of volunteers takes animals in from situations that, for one reason or another, these people have given their animals up, which sometimes is just mind-boggling. When you commit to an animal, it should be a commitment for life. But in some cases, I suppose you need to. But in this case, Wes is here with Happy. And could you just tell us a little bit about Happy?
Well, Happy came to us because there was a change in the family dynamics. There was a young baby involved, and the parents of the infant didn't feel that Happy was going to be good with the baby. And he had lost his playmate of a Chihuahua months earlier than that, so his whole life turned upside down. The family just felt that it was best to rehome him at that point. So we're in the process of trying to find Happy a home, and it's been quite an adjustment for him, but he's coming along.
And we'll put up the contact information for Potter's Angels and how you can talk to Heather about Happy or any of the other dogs that she has. I know our friend Pamela has a wonderful pit bull, Suede, who is just a beautiful sweetheart, and he's looking for a home, and I know you have others. So he is 3 years old?
He's six and a half years old.
6.5.
He has, the history was that he liked to hike and everything, but as we can attest today, he hasn't been hiking for very long, or in quite a while anyway, because he's quite overweight, and he seems to have, you know, some hip problems and maybe even some arthritis. I'm not the doctor, but those types of things seem to slow him down.
Mm-hmm.
He does show energy. You know, he'll chase snowballs, tennis balls, things like that. He wants to play, but he doesn't last for very long.
And you mentioned that he gets along with your dogs.
He does. You know, we had been told that he was pretty much a loner, you know, didn't get along with dogs. We have 5 dogs that range from 6 pounds to 78 pounds. And he gets along very well with all of our dogs.
How about cats?
Haven't cat tested him personally.
Well, we just happen to have a cat.
The home that he was in said for a while they had a cat and everything was fine.
Okay.
Whether they just kept their own space or what, I'm not sure.
And he's housebroken.
He's very, very good boy, housebroken. Haven't had an issue with that at all.
How could you not fall in love with this space? So Happy will be up for adoption. So Dr. Randy?
Well, let me show you a little bit about how the energy works here first before we actually test out Happy. Little gizmo here. Let's use you. So I want you to take one finger and touch the other piece of metal right here. Okay. Now nothing happens. All right. Now I'm just going to, well, for convenience, I'm just going to touch you on the neck. So somehow through this we're making a circuit. When I touch him over here on his neck, we make a circuit which lights up this ball. I don't know if you can see that. So the point is there, we don't have to, there's an electrical current that connects us when we're holding hands. Because in order to test an animal, we're going to be holding hands. Since they can't say hold their arm up and say resist, because that's what I use muscle testing for. So let's go through a little testing here on you. So I'm going to use you as the go-between here. So let's try this muscle here. Hold this arm up, don't let me push it down. Okay, that's nice and strong. Now just for checking purposes here, I'm just going to weaken this muscle, but see what it's like for you to be weak. Hold the arm up. Okay. So
Have you ever had that done before?
Never.
So that gets a little weaker here. I mean, you're pretty strong, so it's not like it just falls down. Okay, so.
Okay, that's very interesting. Let's talk about what you just did, because I don't think people get that. You're not playing along.
No, he's not. No, I don't think he wants to. He'd just as soon see me fail here and fall on my face. So I really test that. I mean, that's really strong. So if it sort of shorts out the nervous system, what we're looking for a second, shorts out the nervous system is what we're looking for. So what I'm going to do then is touch into various areas on Happy, maybe not, and see if I can find some indication of what's going on with the hip. Let me just do something real quick, see if I can find something with the hip. I'm going to go underneath. It's okay. You have a good grip? Oh, it's okay. Yeah, hold your arm up again. Yeah. I think that might be the hip. I'd say so. Okay. All right. Normally what I would do is I would find more of a specific spot on the hip that's really hurting, and kind of ascertain, is that the sacroiliac, is that the muscle? And then I would do a form of adjusting on the hip too. I'm not going to do that at the moment then. But I would also check them out for instance, like glucosamine, and other things that would reduce inflammation, like fish oil, for instance.
If we keep him occupied with this?
We can try.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Let me know how that's working for you, occupying him.
I have a thought. Okay.
All right, that is a little bit better, isn't it? Okay, let's check in the sacrum.
Good boy.
It's all right, babe.
Okay, so I get a little indication that the sacroiliac is an issue. So I'm going to try that again. I'm just going to hold this in my hand here and see if... Yeah, glucosamine is something I would consider. And
what are you doing by holding those?
well, it's the energy field of the glucosamine. It's the kind of energy field that we're using here, and it's plugging into the circuitry here. I know it sounds a little esoteric, but it does seem to work, and there's not something you can use to measure these type of energy fields or influences. We just don't have the technology yet. And that's something else I would consider. I can rest for a second here. Would be fish oil or something like boswellia, things that do reduce inflammation. The diet and the being overweight is also pro-inflammatory. So what I would instruct a person to do is probably massage this hip area before you take the dog out for a walk. Massage it, loosen it up, because a lot of these things can self-correct too. And I'd probably try to get to know Happy better here, so he would be more comfortable with me working on him and performing some maneuvers.
Okay.
But that's what I'd do in this case.
So this would be a first visit, and you would
First visit,
suggest
right.
that he go with glucosamine?
Glucosamine, probably some fish oil. If there's other symptoms, for instance, I'd look at the diet. One of the things with diet, I take animals off of grains at times because it's not necessarily natural to them. Reduce the type of calories, ingested, and look for anything in the diet that might be pro-inflammatory, because fat in itself actually is pro-inflammation too.
So you would go for a low-fat diet?
Right. A lower fat diet, but I'd increase those fats, omega-3s, and sometimes omega-6s too, with people finding some people are imbalanced in omega-6s, and everybody's thinking omega-3s these days.
What would you find 3 or 6 in? Omega-3 or
Omega-3s would be your fish oil and flaxseed oil. Omega-6 would be like black currant seed oil, primrose oil, borage oil, olive oil. So those type of things. And
I'm seeing the series here. This is so much good information.
Well, they do different things, and it has to do with cellular permeability and also precursors to anti-inflammatory, what they're called prostaglandins. And so if that's imbalanced, like many animals, I look at their coat first, and if they're dry, it's like, well, it's not you just need something to rub on or another shampoo. I usually change the diet with oils to change that.
Okay. What I'd like to suggest is speaking with Dr. Randy after the show, putting him on some sort of regime. Maybe, can he walk him now? I mean, does that
I think
hurt?
so. I would. I would massage this area and then take him for a walk. So
Heat
we can
or cold or what?
probably
Heating pad?
heat in this case, because if we had an X-ray, we know if there's arthritis or some other pathology in the joint, which we don't have that data right now. But that's also a possibility, which just means, might give you an idea of what you can or cannot do.
Okay. Thank you so much for watching this episode of For the Animals, and we'd like to see if we can keep Dr. Randy right here in the studio. We do have a cat that's coming up, and join us again next time. And thank you very much for watching.
There was a moment when all was known. You could feel beauty rising on the breeze, the shapes the stone, and I would ride upon the breeze that shapes the stone, across the sky and beyond, to that place where all is known. When I could fly, when I could fly down that road.